Hello, and welcome to episode 70 of Gondor Calls for Ale, a Middle-earth strategy battle games podcast. I am your host, Sam Gallagher, and with me this episode is my brother Ben.
Hello, listeners and viewers. Welcome back to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, welcome. Episode 70, Ben, an exciting number just because we're inching ever closer to that 100th episode.
Oh, that's going to be an exciting episode. 30 episodes from now, Sam. Look back. 100 episodes.
Yeah.
That's going to feel good. But for now, episode 70.
Episode 70, and like all 69 nice episodes before this one, Ben, we got to start with the ale. We've called for it, or I've called for it. I want to know, what are you drinking this fine evening?
Well, Sam, because this episode is an extra special episode, not unlike all of our other episodes, I am drinking an extra special beer. I have myself a General Targ's Tactical Lager, brewed for a true master of battle. Because, Sam, as we all know, all great strategies start with a cold one.
Very good. I like it. I like it.
Thank you. What about you, Sam? What are you drinking for this episode?
Well, Ben, I'm having a Daggerlad Dark, born of battle and shadow, a brew as bold and haunting as the fields of the fallen.
Ooh, nice. That sounds very tasty.
So there we go. Delicious ales, drunk or opened, cracked open,
Indeed.
called for and
Indeed.
answered. So now we got to talk about what this episode is about, Ben. Do you wanna give the viewer, give the listener a little taste, a little morsel of what's to come?
Yes. We're going to be getting back into our tried and true classics. We're going to be talking about some battle reports. That's right, Sam. We finally attended an event. I have attended an event, and we're going to be talking a little bit about it. That is, of course, the slow grow that I am participating up here in the currently rather freezing north. It's called Treebeard Slow Grow because one should never be hasty.
Fair.
And we're starting off with 3 rounds at 350 points. So I'm going to be going over those 3 games and my experience therein.
Would you say that we are back into the meat and potatoes of Gondor Calls for Ale?
I would have said the meat and potatoes, Sam, but I missed opportunity there.
Yeah, well, you've got 3 rounds to boil them, then to mash them, and then to stick them in a stew. Let's hope you can do the boiling, mashing, and sticking in stews, not be boiled, mashed, or stuck in a stew. All right,
I suppose.
That was the most times I've ever said boiled, mashed, and stuck in a stew in a row. So you can count them. It was at least 9, I think. Okay, yeah. So great. We're going to be talking about your attendance, the very first attendance of of Gondor Calls for Ale to a Middle-earth strategy battle game, 2nd edition tournament.
Right.
I'm going to die on the hill that it's 2nd edition, Ben, because it has been Lord of the Rings, Hobbit strategy battle game, whatever, for many editions. Last edition was the first time it was ever the Middle-earth strategy battle game. This edition is also the Middle-earth strategy battle game. It's a new one, therefore, MESBG2. That is it. I have, using the power of being a podcaster, have spoken.
Not unlike Arathorn's last name, Sam will be dying on that hill, possibly to hordes of trolls.
Facts. Or will I conquer them all? Hordes of trolls, definitely. That's a rude way to talk about the community, Ben. Seriously, that's not little unintentional humor. All right. But before we dive into that, we look at some models painted not by me and not by you, by some of our excellent community members. If you're interested, and then we're going to talk about some army lists also submitted or posted by some of our awesome community members. If you're interested in potentially having your stuff featured, or it's not necessarily featuring, it's just sort of like picking things that we're like, oh, this is really cool, whether it's the army list or the models. We have a Discord server. There should be a link in the description of wherever you're listening to or watching this episode to join the server. It's pretty good. We got a solid group, close to 40 people. It's a manageable number, so you won't get a bajillion notifications, but some interesting discussions, some cool lists, and some very cool people.
Absolutely.
So definitely consider checking that out. And it's the only way, well, potentially the only way of getting us to feature your models or lists on the podcast. So if that's interesting to you, stop on by. The water's nice.
All right, Sam. Well, here we have it. I'm going to take it away with the first model shared by our community. We've got here a beautiful Boromir and Legolas from the Fellowship.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, this is super cool. I believe these are the intentions. I'm not actually sure if these are the models from that box set, but I believe these are the breaking of the Fellowship, or will be the breaking of the Fellowship.
Yeah,
Legolas and Boromir, and yeah, they look great.
they
Love it.
do look great. That's one of my favorite Legolas poses. I like the knife pose quite a lot.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one, and that's kind of I'm a big fan. I don't know who the sculptor of these ones are. Could be the Perrys at this point. But I'm a huge fan of that original Metal Fellowship, which was sculpted by Brian Nelson, I believe,
Hmm.
and some of the best models in the range. But I do also enjoy this. Boromir is slightly more interesting than the one where he's like basically what is he? He's got a shield on his back, holding the horn and the sword like
Sword
down.
down. Yeah.
But still, so kind of cool to have this one slightly more like I'm doing a thing, and these look awesome. So I hope to never see them across the table because I think heroes are gonna like these kind of lists are gonna be pretty horrifying. But if I do see them across the table, they'll look beautiful while they cut my army to shreds.
Mince them fine.
Yeah.
All right, so fantastic. Some breaking of the fellowship and on into this awesome Rohirrim traitor. I
Is
like
it a
this.
is it a traitor? You said that when we were going through this before. I don't. Is the intention traitor Rohan? I thought it was just a. I think this is as we'll talk about later for a Realms of Men army and therefore not necessarily a traitor Rohan. But that was maybe
Oh,
just my assumption.
could have sworn the comment on the channel was about traitor Rohirrim, but maybe I'm.
Well, either way, while you look that up and confirm one
Oh,
way or the
Rohirrim
other.
mercenary. I apologize. I apologize.
Ah,
They're
yeah,
Rohirrim mercenaries. They're
I
not
love it.
not traitors, just for hire.
I think it looks awesome. Yellow
I
is
do.
a can be a challenging color to do and do
Yeah.
well, and it's done very well. Looks great. I mean, these new models are fantastic as well. And this having whether it's a warband or a full army of these dudes on the table will be crazy eye-catching. Like that's a table you'll walk past at an event and be like, if you see it, you're almost guaranteed to be like, what is that? Because it's
Right. I
super
like it for a
eye-catching.
yellow because it's not too bright, but it's definitely eye
Hmm.
catching. It's like a really nice sunburst, golden
Yeah.
yellow. I think it looks fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, and but only a few more of those throwing spears allowed, depending how big your army is. So
That's right. All right. Well, Sam, speaking of armies, let's take a look at some army lists that have been submitted by our community. We've got here a. I guess this is an odd points value. I chose this one, Sam, because I really like the Realms of Men faction. So it's 488 points. I guess you'd call that a 500 point list. Playing 12 points down, you'd throw another warrior of Rohan in there, maybe.
I believe there is a 488 point event in March in Durham or the
Ah,
North Carolina area. So I think this is an intentional 488, but I'm not. Could be, as you said, you could throw an extra warrior in there and basically call this a 500 point list.
yeah, yeah, awesome. Well, if it is a 488 point event, well done getting exactly 488 points. Seems like a tricky one to nail. All right, so as mentioned, this is the Realms of Men. We've got 31 models, 7 bows, 5 throwing spears, and a total of 5 might. It is, of course, led by a King of Men, this one from Gondor. He's on a horse, he's got heavy armor, a shield, and a lance. He's got a warrior of Minas Tirith with a banner in his warband, 5 warriors of Minas Tirith with shield, 10 Citadel Guard with spears, and 2 Citadel Guard with longbows. In the second warband, we've got a captain of Rohan who's got a horse and heavy armor. He's got 5 riders of Rohan, 4 warriors of Rohan with shield and throwing spears, and 1 warrior of Rohan with shield.
Yeah, yeah, super cool. I don't. Does the Gondor? What's the Gondor one give you? Plus one might? Is it three
Yeah,
might
plus one
king?
line. Mm-hmm.
I love this army, and I love the idea of running Kings of Men. I do think that this is not legal. I
Oh,
think you're only allowed non-named hero. Like I think you have to have, if you want a Rohan captain, I think you have to have a Rohan king, and same with, uh, like it. I think you have to have king, and then it
uh,
unlocks. I'm not
interesting.
100% sure on that though. So you, definitely take that with a grain of salt. Worth checking, but I believe that's the case.
Mm.
Which
Mm.
you could, what, kings are 90?
Yeah.
No, that can't be right. Unless the armor and lance and stuff is free. So you could probably, I think maybe they're 80, 20 for the horse, 10 for the armor and lance. That sounds about right. So
Hmm.
you could pretty easily, I think, find. I guess it wouldn't be a mounted Rohan hero, but you could find those points if I am correct. Uh,
Yeah, to change that captain to a king of Rohan on foot.
yeah.
Would be
I
pretty
will.
cool.
I'm actually going to look that up because I'm curious, Ben. But do you want to go move in? Any other thoughts about this list? Otherwise, assuming it's legal and not, or do you
No,
want to
not
go?
particularly. I like the opportunities that the Kings of Men, the Realms of Men army list allows you to sort of to play within the more restrictive list building setup that we've got. I think it gives some really cool options without necessarily feeling at all overpowered. I think it's fun, it's thematic, and lets you get some cool stuff on the board. But while Sam looks that up, I will move us on into our next list, which is a pretty ridiculous list, especially seeing it here like this. This is submitted from Buyers Warhammer to the Gondor Calls for Ale Discord. These are the guys who run our favorite tournaments down in Durham, North Carolina, and this list is Minas Tirith. It's 800 points. It's only 22 models, but it's also 22 might. So we've got a series of 11 warbands, each of them with a captain of Minas Tirith and then a warrior of Minas Tirith in those warbands as well. One of the warriors of Minas Tirith has got a banner. The rest of them have shield and spear. I think lists like this are kind of fascinating. They're not something that I really thought too much about in the last edition, but I think I like them quite a lot more in this current edition, where a lot of the named captains are now two might. I don't know that I would spam this many captains, but I do kind of like the idea of an army of just captains more than I used to in the previous edition.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely kind of funny and kind of neat. Oh, Kings of Men. So somebody had responded to this that you could pretty easily drop one warrior and make one of those captains of Minas Tirith into a king of Gondor. You wouldn't lose
Yeah.
anything for doing that. You basically gain a point of might and a hero of legend and some additional stuff, which is also a neat idea.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Kings of Men, here we go. We'll sort of span both lists. Kings of Men are 75 points base.
Okay.
Um, and this is I'm going to read it because I'm not 100% sure, but I believe I am correct. So a Realms of Men army can never include any model with the unique keyword under any circumstances. However, it can include hero models without the unique keyword as long as they share a faction keyword with a King of Men already in the army.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
example, a Realms of Men army can have a King of Gondor with the King of Gondor keyword, include a Captain of Minas Tirith as long as they both have the Gondor keyword. Heroes may including this mana may also include warriors in their warbands with the same faction keyword. So yeah, you do have to have that Rohan King before.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm just gonna bot back to that list. You're only looking for 5 points to make that captain of Rohan into a king if you wanted to run this without changing anything. So taking off the one warrior of Rohan with shield, and now he's a Rohan king.
Yeah, you are then potentially looking at like, so that's a captain on horse. If you want to put the king on horse, you then need 25 points. And if you want him in heavy armor, you're
Yeah.
looking at a 30 points, which is definitely doable. I mean, or ride,
Two riders of Rohan.
yeah, or they're like 14 each, aren't they? Anyway, yeah. So it's doable. You lose a few models, but uh, definitely still cool either way. And the all captain list, if you want to go back over, is kind of funny. There are probably some circumstances where it's pretty tough to chew through, but I think
Mm-hmm.
it's more a for giggles perhaps than a a serious. I wonder what the theme is. Like what are we saying? Like this is
Council of the Captains. I mean, you could go for a sort
yeah.
of
But
funny
why?
theme, and
But why are they going to war, Ben?
that's a good question.
So
I've gotten
that's
lost. And they're the captains of the West who didn't make it to appear in the screen or on the books. They're the unnamed captains of the West
yeah.
on their way to Mordor.
I think I would lean into it's one captain and his however many uh,
10.
friends and these are like the movie Marines. So it's like this is what a captain of, and I guess it would be the like. Actually, you know what I would probably do is I would probably do my idea of doing the Fountain Court Guard like garrison.
Oh, yeah,
So
there you
one
go.
of them is the leader of the Fountain Court Guard, the rest of them are Fountain Court Guard because I believe in the books the Fountain Court Guard all have like mithril helmets and stuff. They're
Yep.
certainly the wings of mithril, and so you're like your Fountain Court Guard are like the man, you know.
Right. That'd
So
be cool. That'd be cool. Make them have them all be guard of the Fountain Court. Get a model guard of the Fountain Court with spears. Sorry, not with spears, with swords and shields, and they still get to be that defense 7 they were the last
yeah,
edition.
and then you could do the regular troops as regular as just like the
Hmm.
the warriors or whatever, but the Fountain Court Guard are like showing that there's a reason they guard that fountain then.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. I like that.
All right, well that's what we've got as far as shared in our Discord and our community. Like I said earlier, if you wanna see your lists up here, or even just get in contact with Ben and I. We're both pretty active on that Discord. Feel free to jump in our Discord server. Everyone's welcome within anyway, there are rules about what you can and can't do and what makes you not welcome, but we don't need to get into that there. So or here. So definitely join the Discord server if that's something that interests you. I think we're also going to, if you're not a Discord user, which is totally reasonable, but you'd like to potentially have stuff featured, you can always send us a message through Instagram, Facebook, or wherever. And you can use the hashtag Gondor Calls for Ale on Instagram if you want us to potentially, feature some of your hobby stuff. Um,
Yeah, we'd love to see it all. Show us.
yeah.
Show us.
Aside from that, Ben, while we're sort of still on a plugging ourselves and saying thank you to the community, if you enjoy this video, please consider giving it a like. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Definitely cool to see those numbers increase. Drop us a comment, all of that good stuff. And most importantly, we are of course on Patreon. If you enjoy the show in any form, whether it's audio or video, please consider joining the Patreon. It really does help us do these episodes. And something exciting coming in the future soon that will reveal to you. The other thing about now joining a Patreon is we're going to have monthly hobby hangs. We're actually going to be having one, depending when you're listening to this, on the day it was released, which is the 24th of January. So we're going to be having one on the evening of that day. If you listened to the episode, if you listen to it in the morning, it's not too late. Join the Patreon and you can jump in on the hobby. So
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be cool.
So there we go. There's all our plugs, all our that stuff. I'll tell you now. It's probably about 30 seconds, so you could skip it. But I'm saying it afterwards, so it doesn't really help you
You
out.
could go
But
back 30 seconds and listen to it again.
then skip it.
Then
Yeah.
skip it.
So that's that. I think, Ben, it's time to move into the
Meat and potatoes of the
nailed it.
episode.
That wasn't
Now, I'm
rehearsed.
glad you set it up for me
at all.
because I almost was like, "What? Huh?"
So let's move it in. Let's go in. Treebeard
All right,
Slow
here we go.
Grow.
We're gonna one more army list, and that is, of course, the army list that I was bringing to the event, Sam. So it's a slow grow league. It's a addition league. You're not allowed to subtract things from your army list. Mostly, those are maybe drop a horse here, maybe swap some war gear around is generally allowed.
Okay.
But for the most part, we're just adding stuff to the list. We add 150 points every round. We're starting off at 350 points, and I am taking the Besiegers of the Hornburg largely, Sam, because I'm really, really excited to play with the Snow Troll, which will be coming out just in time for round 2 of the Slow Grow. So, Besiegers of the Hornburg, 350 points. We are, of course, starting it off with Wolf, Lord of the Hill Tribes. He is, of course, on horse.
He's
In
the
his
High
warband,
Lord of the Hill Tribes, Ben.
High Lord of the Hill Tribes, even. Yes, on his high horse. It's a pretty big high horse, that horse that Wolf is on. In his warband, there are 6 hill tribesmen with bow, 2 hill tribesmen with flaming brand, and 8 hill tribesmen with spear. Then we have the true general of the force, General Targ. He's not actually the general. In his warband, there are 4 hill tribesmen and 4 hill tribesmen with spear. So for a total of 26 models at 350 points.
That's pretty good. That's a fair amount to chew through, but they are made of mush and
They
paper.
are so made of mush. I don't think I played a game. Well, we'll spoil it now, Sam. I broke in every single one of my games. At least 50% of my hillmen died in every single game.
I would be surprised if that wasn't the case. But yeah, I mean, there's not much to say about this list apart from you could, I think you could make the choice of, do you take the bows, do you not take the bows, do you
Yeah.
put more flame brands in there, do you put some two-handed weapons? I really like two-handed weapons in this edition, and I think on a what becomes a 6-point model, you're just like, okay, I'll fish for that 6, and you know. I
Yeah,
was thinking
absolutely.
about it. It's kind of funny that you can roll for a two-handed weapon. You can roll a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 6. You can never roll a 5.
You can never get a 5 on a two-handed weapon. That is funny. I didn't think about that, but yeah, unless you're at like -1 for some reason from Gandalf's blinding, the day has come. But yeah, as a
Sure,
general rule,
sure.
impossible to roll a 5.
But but yeah, so pretty cool, pretty interesting. Did you decide not to put Targ on the horse just to get the numbers up, or was there?
I actually think, Sam, we talked about Gothmog on foot in the previous edition. I think, especially with a horse being 20 points, that I wouldn't put General Targ on a horse. I also think it's
Uh-huh.
a lot easier to get your Master of Battle where he needs to be if he's on
Hmm.
foot, especially when, I mean, there's only 26 models in my army, but at 350 points, there's a horde of guys running around. The battlefield can get clogged, and I think it's a lot easier to maneuver him around when he's on foot. I definitely enjoyed having him on foot in all of my games. I saw no reason. There was never once where I was like, "Damn, I wish he was on horse."
He's a Master Battle 4 plus,
Yeah, Master Battle 4+.
better than Bolg or Azog, that's for sure. More mastered.
That's right.
He's mastered more battles than those two. And then my only other question: do you have a March in the list? Does he have
General
March?
Targ has March.
He does. Nice. Cool.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into it, Ben. Game one.
All right, Sam. So we had 12 people attend our slow grow session, which is a whopping 4 times increase of our player base in main. So that's very exciting. There are normally just 3 of us, and we had a lot of new players show up. Obviously, we had 9 new players, and they all wanted to experiment with new things from the movies. So I didn't take any pictures of this game because my opponent was playing the Ents, and he was missing an Ent. Someone was going to bring in one for him to borrow. It didn't arrive, so we ended up proxying a Tau battle suit, and I just couldn't bring myself to take any pictures of the game because there was a Tau
Fair.
battle. So
Fair
the
enough.
army list was Treebeard with Merry and Pippin and Birchseed.
Fair.
And for round 1, Sam, starting it off for all the new players, keeping it nice and simple, we played To the Death.
Oh, very well. To the Death from the new book. I will read this off my phone because I left my book at home. A classic 12-inch up deployment zones. No problems
Right.
there. We have the objectives, Ben. We have a game that lasts until the end of a turn in which one army has been reduced to 25% of its starting number of models, at which point the game will end. As I've already said, I don't have to keep reading that paragraph. And then we've got some scoring victory points. You score 1 victory point if the enemy general was wounded during the game. If the enemy general has been wounded and only has one wound remaining, you score 3 victory points. If the enemy general has been removed as a casualty, instead you score 5. You score 3 victory points if the enemy army is broken at the end of the game. If the enemy army is broken and your army is not, instead you score 5 victory points. You score 2 victory points if your opponent has no banners remaining at the end of the game. If they didn't have a banner to start with, you automatically score this. You score 1 victory point if you have at least 1 banner remaining at the end of the game. If you have more banners remaining than your opponent, instead you score 2 victory points. You score 3 victory points if the enemy army has been reduced to 25% of its starting models at the end of the game. You score 1 victory point if the enemy, for each enemy hero that has been removed as a casualty, up to a maximum of 3 victory points. Having being the first one, you're the first one who has played in an event, Ben. I'm the first one who's read a new scenario on the podcast. That is significantly more involved than the others.
Yeah, it definitely was. It was funny because a couple of our veteran players messed up their scores because they were just sort of thinking in the previous edition. We had to go back to the TO and be like, actually, sorry, that
Yeah.
score should be X, Y, and Z. So I guess I'm going to go through this game fairly quickly. There's not a whole lot to say. We were playing on a fairly open board. Definitely not 33% of the table covered in terrain. We had 4 big Osgiliath ruins sort of in each corner of the board and a nice big open field in the middle. And I moved up my army. I left my bows to sit still, Sam. They moved up half, I think. I had taken bows, and by damn it, we were going to take some pot shots at some Ents, Sam, even though we need 6s by 5s to put a hurting on a tree with a Hillman bow. So I spent 2 turns shooting. In the second turn, the Ents were within range to throw stones at me, so they stood still and started hucking rocks. Treebeard hucked a rock at General Targ, but very fortunately, one of his faithful hill tribesmen leapt in the way of the rock and got absolutely obliterated instead. And the same thing happened to Wolf. Birchseed tried to snipe Wolf off of his horse, made it past 2 lines of hillmen, but the 3rd line of hillmen I had in the way caught the stone instead. Which left me feeling a little bit worried, I'm not going to lie. So I sent Wolf round the back of this building, and the Ents then bum rushed my battle lines, which left Wolf a little bit further away than I wanted him to be. But, Sam, in the first clash of hillmen and Ents, Treebeard, of course, rocked right in, and my opponent, John, was trying to use as many of the new rules. He was new to the game, he'd read through it, all these special rules. He was really excited about all these rules. That's why he picked the Ents. And so he did a bunch of barging on round 1, which was actually not a great tactic for him because he just knocked 2 models aside and went into 2 and then killed 2. So we took 4 hill tribes casualties that turn. I forget who took priority. I didn't do a terribly good job of taking notes for this game. But essentially, the trees rush back into my battle lines. General Wolf rides around the back, setting himself up to charge into a combat next time, and I start taking courage tests with a bunch of hill tribesmen, and we actually managed to get about 6 hill tribesmen and all their spear supports in contact with Birchseed. It's a dangerous strategy, but we're going for it. And in the combat phase, Birchseed rolls a 4 high, and he only has 1 point of might, and my horde of hill tribesmen get the 6, and they managed to put 2 wounds through onto Birchseed.
Oof.
But yeah, looking pretty good. He's sitting there and only 1 wound left. Treebeard is, of course, just smashing his way through hill tribesmen. And instead of actually smashing through too many hill tribesmen, I think he called a combat this turn, killed 2, and then picks 1 up and hucks it at Wolf, which from a veteran player, I absolutely would have seen coming. From a new player, I was like, oh shit, he's read the rules and he's got a grasp of the rules pretty quick. So Wolf is knocked off his horse this turn, takes the wound from having a hill tribesman collide with him, and takes another wound from falling off his horse. So I spent 1 point of fate and saved 1, so Wolf is now sitting on 1 fate and 2 wounds, which is not a good start. And he's, of course, prone, so he's not going to get into combat next turn. So next turn, basically this exact same thing happens. Wolf gets up, runs towards Treebeard. Treebeard picks up another hill tribesman, pegs Wolf, does another wound to him. Wolf spends his last point of fate, so Wolf's sitting on 2 wounds. And Birchseed, once again, biffs his combat. I have managed to get only 3 hill tribesmen into combat with him this turn, but it is enough. Them and their spear supports are able to put the final wound through on Birchseed, and we drag him down this turn. And Wolf is in range of Treebeard to call his free heroic challenge, which was probably a terrible idea, not going to lie. Treebeard with 5 attacks and fight 8 and +1 to wound against Wolf. It does not look good for Wolf. But we've had some move-offs at this point, and Treebeard is down to 1 might. So Wolf goes for it. He's sick and tired of having hillmen chucked at him. Loitering around the back lines clearly isn't working this time. Charge into Treebeard, get Targ in there, get all my guys in there, and we go for the strike off. And Wolf strikes up to fight 7. Treebeard strikes up to fight 10. But on all his 5 dice, Sam, Treebeard cannot roll the 6. So Wolf and his horde of hill tribesmen, we win the fight, and we put 3 wounds through on Treebeard, and he saves a couple of them. Next turn rolls around again. Treebeard's now out of might. Wolf strikes up. Doesn't get to fight 8. Treebeard still got 5 dice to roll looking for the 6. Doesn't get the 6. And this time, Wolf and his hill tribes drag down Treebeard. And then over the next turn, just butcher Merry and Pippin savagely. Which I believe left it an 18-2 or an 18-5 victory to me. I can't read my handwriting.
Ah, wow, excellent. I suppose we could work it out, but I guess he got 1 for wounding your general and 1 for breaking you.
I lied to you, Sam. I wasn't broken this game. I was not. That I was broken in all my other games. I only lost 12 of the 13. Sorry, 13 of the required 14 hill tribesmen. So I was 1 short of breaking.
So I guess it would have been 1 for wounding your general, and then 2 for you having no banners.
So. Yeah, so I guess it's 3 to 18. My handwriting is truly terrible.
Awesome. Yeah. I think monsters are way better than they ever have been. At 350 points, I maybe would have been tempted to do 2 regular Ents and 1 of the other, and like Beachbone.
Ooh, yeah, leave Treebeard.
I think that would have been much harder to bring down, but Treebeard's Treebeard, and 1 of the characters is nice. Pardon?
How many points is Treebeard, do you know?
190 plus 10 for the hobbits.
Nice. So in the slow grow, because we escalate by 150 points, if you want to include something that's more than 150, it kind of has to be in your army lists
Sure,
from
sure.
stage one. But I think maybe two regular ents. I guess maybe you can't fit them in there with
No,
Treebeard.
you can't because they're 100 each. So
Yeah.
you yeah. I mean, and I assume in the next 150 points, assuming he sticks around, he's probably just going to add the next character. Uh,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a shame. That's the kind of thing I would talk to the organizer about and be like, look, I can, at a certain point, we're going to go up and I'm going to be playing 50 points down unless I can drop,
Hmm.
unless I can really change my list.
Yeah.
But whatever, you're
Yeah.
playing Ents, it's going to be fine. They get some cool rules. I just think if you're trying to use fun special rules, that having picking a couple of the different variety events.
Yeah.
Actually, while we're talking about the league, how high are you guys going?
800 points
800 points, and is it every month, every
every
couple?
month. So we're getting together every month. So it's a sort of, I think the next one is going to be February 22nd, 500 points, then
Nice.
650, then 800.
Nice, cool, very cool. All right, Ben, let's get into game two, where we hope there were no Tau battle suits in there, and there were maybe some pictures.
All right. Well, I got one good picture, or one picture of game two. I was fighting against Joey, who is also fairly new to the game, but not new to painting. As you can see, his beautifully painted Saruman here, and he was playing the muster of Isengard, Sam, which is Saruman and all of the siege troops.
Yep.
He had Saruman, he had 3 berserkers, I think maybe 14 cans, and the rest were pikes for a total
Mm-hmm.
of 15 models.
Oof.
Yeah, and we were playing Reconnoiter, so it was going to be a tough game for him.
Uh, all right. Well, I will now read Reconnoiter in MEESBG, anyway, whatever it is, the second
Messenger.
edition. Second edition. All right, Ben. We have a game that once again lasts until one army has been reduced to 25% of its starting number. Obviously, models that escape the board, spoiler alert, models trying to escape the board, do not count towards that. Okay, now we've got some scoring victory points. I should note as well, I'm so good at this. I'm nailing this. It's been a while since we've done one of these. This is a Maelstrom of Battle scenario. No, it's not. It's a reinforcement one.
Yep.
So there are no deployment zones is the important part that I'm trying to get. Then we've got scoring victory points. You score 4 victory points if more of your models have escaped the battlefield via your opponent's board edge than vice versa. If at least 2 of your models and twice as many than your opponent have escaped, instead you score 8. If at least 3 models and 3 times as many as your opponent have escaped the board edge, instead you score 12. You score 1 victory point for each of your hero models that escape to a maximum of 3. You score 1 victory point if the enemy general has been wounded. If the enemy general has been killed, instead you score 2. You score 1 victory point if the enemy army is broken at the end of the game. If the enemy army is broken and yours is not, instead you score 3 victory points. And then, as I said, this is a reinforcement, so on the first turn, in the move phase, you roll a d6 for each of your warbands. On a 1 to 3, they don't arrive, but next turn they get a +1. On a 4 to 6, you move them on from the table edge.
All right, Sam. So we will dive right into this game. Joey takes first turn priority, and Saruman arrives nice and promptly, walking on his back board edge. And then back to my movement, and both of my characters, Wolf and then Targ, arrive promptly. I think I rolled 5s, both of them as well. And I think it's worth noting that it's since your general has dominant 3 and you'll get victory points for moving characters off the board, it's actually, you're almost incentivized to run your general off the board, which is something that I pointed out to Joey in this game. Possibly with the intention of running away with Wolf, but possibly not. I didn't really have a plan. I was just sort of planting a little seed there. So in turn 2, I call a heroic march with General Targ just to sort of rush up the board and start going to start moving some guys around. Joey throws out a sneaky compel on Wolf and moves him backwards through a building. And I had been going to send my 2 torchbearers through these ruins and off up my right flank. But because of where Wolf ended up, they were going to have to take a climb test to climb over the wall because his base was now in the way. Although, compel is different than it once was. You still can't move after you've been compelled. Joey had taken priority. I'd called my march. So I took one of them, went to go climb over the wall, rolled a 1 and didn't make the climb test, and the other one sort of just hung out behind my battle lines because I really was committed to pushing them down this right flank. So,
I assume Saruman has obviously changed, but one of the things he now gets to do is pick a hero model in your opponent's army that is at -1 to all resist rolls. I assume he picked Wolf.
Yes, and thank you for bringing that. He absolutely picked Wolf, and I honestly just didn't even attempt to resist this one. Wolf does have
Right.
3 will, but when you're at -1 to resist, it's like you really think hard about spending those will.
I was actually thinking about today that Saruman with Channel and that rule is potentially really good because basically you spend a might and then free will, and
Yep.
depending on the range, you're like flame burst your general, and then they are spending, let's say they spend 1 will and get really lucky and roll the 6, they're still not resisting it. They are then having to spend a point of might. So you strip a might and a will if they want to resist your spell at best because they can't
Mhm.
roll this. They can never roll the 6, so they have to spend it. So either they're just like whatever, I'm going to take the spell, or you save onto them and wait until a point where you're like you're surrounded by tin cans. I'm going to transfix you, and my Uruk-hai captains in this army list can now strike, potentially outstrike you. And like, do you really want to be taking all of those Uruk-hai, blows to the head, like particularly, or like flame burst seems really good, especially because it's on a 5 now. So anyway,
Yeah.
that was my thoughts about Saruman. I have hope
Yeah.
for him yet.
I like the Muster Advising Guide quite a lot, Sam, too, because I should mention that they also get Hatred Men in this force, which means they kill my Dunlanding Hill Tribesmen on 3s.
Yeah.
So talk about dropping like flies. So as the battle lines approach, we're getting closer. I have got Wolf and my 2 Flaming Brandsmen running off down this right-hand flank. Saruman throws another throws a transfix. No, it's a sorcerer's blast. Throws a sorcerer's blast at Wolf, and I burn 2 will to resist it. Successfully do resist it. I think Saruman rolled a 4, and I rolled a 5 down to a 4, or something like that. No, sorry, Saruman obviously got the 5 because he doesn't cast. Anyway, I was able to resist it without spending any points of might. And then we get into this interesting turn where I've got Wolf, like he's now trying to get out of Saruman's line of sight. He's lost 2 of his will. He wants to get something done this game before he just gets shut down by a wizard for the whole game. So he's like all the way off on my right-hand flank, pretty much behind this Gondor Manor building that's sitting here in this image. You can see Wolf's. You can see a Flaming Brandsman out of focus in the background. Wolf was past that Flaming Brands guy, hiding from Saruman, all the way on the flank. And Joey has priority. No, sorry, I've got priority. Or I'm moving first. And so I call a second heroic march with Targ, and my army is in the middle of the board, and I essentially just rush everybody except 2 guys who go off down the left-hand flank to just see what happens. I've got enough guys, I can put them all over the board. So General Targ and his warband rush to try and make it to these arches of this mansion to create this like thin Dunlanding wall between my right-hand flank that I'm going to run my objective guys down and this horde of Uruk-hai and Saruman that are bearing down on me. And Joey commits Saruman and charges him forwards. He says he meant to call a heroic challenge at the top of the turn, or he was thinking that he was new to the game. He didn't realize that you were supposed to call challenge at the top of the turn. And he was like, do you mind if I call a heroic challenge? And I was like, yeah, but I would want to move Wolf if you call a heroic challenge. And we decided not to reset the turn because it would have changed things. So Saruman rides forwards, attempts to compel Wolf or transfix Wolf, who is actually in combat with. There were 2 Uruk-hai over there trying to shut down that flank. Wolf's in combat with one of them. Spends his last point of will, successfully resists Saruman. I got pretty lucky with that. I think he rolled fairly low for the transfix. And then Saruman finishes his move by charging into not 1, but into 2 hill tribesmen, one of whom's got a spear behind them. So he's going to be throwing 2 dice in the fight phase against 3 coming back at him. And I was like, are you really sure you want to do that? It's a dangerous place to put your wizard. And he's like, nope, I'm into it. I found General Targ at this point, by the way, is hiding behind my battle lines. I need that fight 5 in certain places, and I didn't want him to just get surrounded by berserkers and chopped to pieces.
Just before you get into that, I have checked. Saruman doesn't actually have challenge.
Oh, channel. It was a channel. He wrote channel. Sorry.
Oh, I thought you said challenge. Okay.
I may have said challenge. I meant channel.
Gotcha. Makes more sense.
Makes much more sense. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying, because I'm sure there was someone else over there confused, going, "Why is he challenging in the movement phase?" No, channel. He wrote channel. So Wolf calls a heroic combat this turn, kills his Uruk-hai, goes into the other Uruk-hai behind him, kills him. Saruman does win his fight against the 3 dice, against the 3 hill tribesmen, and only manages to clobber one of them to death, though. which is pretty important because it let me leave 2 bodies in my thin Dunlanding wall, so Saruman is not going to ride round the corner of that building and bully Wolf next turn when Joey uses the Palantir, which is what he does. So he uses the Palantir next turn, takes priority. I call a move with General Targ. Saruman counter moves, and the move off goes to Joey, which actually ended up working out really well for me because after all the moves were done, I was able to charge General Targ into Saruman, who is still getting his. I think he flame bursted. Yeah, that's right. And as Saruman goes in, he tries to flame burst my flaming brand guy, but failed to flame burst him. So General Targ goes into Saruman. We've now got the Tide Fight. I've got a bunch of Hill Tribesmen in there as well. The Uruk-hai, by the way, have just been plowing through my guys. I am like 1 or 2 away from broken at this point. And instead of committing Wolf to just riding off the board, this is Wolf's time. His time has come. He rides back around to the position in which you see him in this picture and declares a free heroic challenge, not channel Sam, challenge against Saruman. I don't remember who won the fight off between Saruman and General Targ. I don't know if I lost another Hill Tribesman or if I just didn't wound Saruman. I don't have Saruman marked down as taking any wounds. But importantly, next turn, I win priority. I win the move off, and we get Wolf into Saruman, and that goes exactly how you would expect. Wolf on 4 dice, looking to with Saruman trapped, +1 to wound. I think I put 8 wounds on Saruman or something.
I have 2 questions.
Yeah, shoot.
First, did Saruman accept the challenge?
He did accept the challenge, but only because there was nowhere for him to go.
Yeah. I mean, I think in this picture, that's the right call. Second, did Saruman have any might left? Because he's got defense now, which is pretty cool. So he could have.
He could have called it defense. Oh, he did call it defense. That's right. He did call it. Maybe I killed him the second time round, but I've definitely. Yeah, I'm sort of skimming my notes. He did call it defense. General Targ, master of battle, the defense, and got a free heroic defense against him.
Sure.
Yeah. So there was a defense in there, but once Saruman went down, it was I used Wolf to kill the rest of the berserkers. The Wolf then rode off the table, and I got 2 flaming brand guys, a regular Hill Tribesman, and Wolf off the board, as well as killing his general and breaking him. He did break me. I lost 16 Hill Tribesmen in this game. There were only 10 left, or 7 left after the 3 had managed to run off the table. And this was another, I believe it was 16-2 victory to me.
Ben just clobbering all of those new players.
Yeah, I know. I think this, again, Saruman's a tricky one in the slow grow format because he's 180 points. You've got to start with him in the army. I do think he wants to be on foot in the first edition of the slow grow.
Sure.
That 20-point horse feels pretty expensive when you only have 15 models.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I was just wondering.
Joey used the mobility of him very effectively. I had Wolf was running scared for the first 2/3 of this game.
Yeah, I mean, might be a different given that you've got 3 fight 5 2 attack berserkers. Like if you didn't have so many models, and as an experienced player, like this might not be the worst. Yeah, I wonder if maybe the one to go if you want to play Isengard and potentially take Saruman in the slow grow league is the Army of the White Hand. Obviously, you don't get the tin cans, but you can add Saruman in later, and but I guess you can't add him in later because he's 180 point or 70 points, so you're taking him from the start. Yeah, oh well.
Yeah, it's tricky. I will say, too, that Joey's Berserkers were awesome. He had 3 of them in a clump in what was originally the center of the board, but ended up being my right-hand flank. One of them was surrounded by 4 Hill Tribesmen with bows. My block of bowmen had been taking pot shots at Saruman and doing absolutely nothing. And he did the 2-handed whirling blade attack. Got the 6, so he kept the 6. And then dealt 1 strike against each Hill Tribesman. And because they have Hatred Men and they're 2-handing, they wound my Hill Tribesmen on 2s.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm
just evaporated, guys. It was great.
I'm very excited to use Berserkers. I was recently gifted a baggie of 10 beautiful metal Berserkers, so that puts my total up to 16. So one day they'll all hit the table at once, and it will be a great day.
Heavy. It'll be hitting the table heavy. 16 metal Berserkers.
Yeah, heavy is good. It's a sign of reliability. All right, Ben. Let's move on. So 2 major victories into the final game in what I can only assume is Hexlandia.
Yes, yes, Hexlandia, the red wastes of Mordor or something. Wolf's gone rampaging so far. He's seeing blood. He's 2 for 2 on his heroic challenges at this point, by the way, and I'm feeling pretty good. Enough beating up on new players. It's time to play my veteran opponent, Ian. And he is, of course, playing Men of the West with Aragorn, King Alessa on horse, and 10 Warriors of Minas Tirith. Some number of them with spear and shield. I think 2 of them or 3 of them with just shield. For a total of 11 models. And we were playing Domination.
Ooh, Domination. A good one, then. A good one. A game that has 24-inch up deployment zones and 1 objective you deploy in the center. You also deploy, each player deploys 2 other objectives, which what? You place objectives anywhere on the battlefield at least 12 inches from an existing objective, 6 inches from a board edge. And we have a game that lasts until one force has been reduced to 25% of its starting numbers. We've got some nice, easy scoring objectives. For each objective, you score 1 victory point if you have more models within 3 than your opponent. If you have at least twice as many models as your opponent within 3, instead you score 2 victory points. If you are the only player to have models within 3, instead you score 3 victory points. You score 1 victory point if the enemy general is wounded during the game. If the enemy general was removed as a casualty, instead you score 2 victory points. You score 1 victory point if the enemy army was broken at the end of the game. If the enemy army is broken and yours is not, instead you score 3 victory points. There we go. Domination.
Yeah. So we placed down our objectives. You can see all 5 of them in this image. There are 2 in the back behind Ian's army, and there are 2 in the front. One of them is in the clump of my army. This was a mission where I was really glad I had my 6 bows. They again didn't do anything except apply pressure, because my army gets a bonus +1 to wound if I'm within range. The warrior models get +1 to wound if they're within range of an objective. So what I wanted to do in this game is camp on an objective, taking shots at Ian, and hopefully make the most of that +1 to wound. I believe I took first turn priority and just sat there. Aragorn calls a free heroic march and runs forwards. No, Ian took first turn priority. Aragorn runs forwards, and I back up my army so that I am more than 12 inches away from the forces of Gondor, because I wasn't ready for the fight, basically. So Ian pushes up again. I take more pot shots. We're not doing anything. Next turn, Aragorn is now within range to charge. The Warriors of Minas Tirith are still just outside of 6 because I stayed outside of 12. Aragorn charges in, calls a heroic combat, kills 4 hill tribesmen. But we've got this sort of like where the battle lines are like they're right there. So Ian takes the next turn priority. Aragorn rushes into more hill tribesmen. His warriors cannon in forwards, keeping nice flanks on either side of him. And then I just surround them all with a whole horde of hill tribesmen. I should say too, Sam, that Ian has left behind 2 of his warriors of Minas Tirith to score those back objectives. So right now, all I am dealing with is 1 Aragorn and 8 warriors.
One of those things is a problem.
That's all we got to deal with. So in the combat phrase, Aragorn, of course, calls it free heroic combat. And General Targ masters of battles that heroic combat for a free heroic combat. Aragorn kills another 4 hill tribesmen, and all of his warriors win all of their fights except the fight against Wolf and Targ, both of whom completely biff and fail to kill their targets. So I take something like another 7 casualties this turn. So we've taken 11 casualties so far, haven't removed a single model. But importantly, at the top of the combat phase, Wolf, skulking behind the battle lines, once again calls a free heroic challenge at Aragorn. I take priority next. Aragorn calls a free heroic move. Targ attempts to master a battle, does not master a battles it, and the move, just goes to Ian. Battle lines re-engage. I've got so many hill tribesmen, and I'm positioning them very carefully. I'm not actually ready for the heroic challenge between Wolf and Aragorn. I want that challenge on my terms, and in this situation, that means everyone else is dead, and it's just Aragorn, and we're just going to surround. Those are my terms. So we get, battle lines relock. We get back in. This is our turn. Wolf calls a heroic combat, kills his target, kills another guy. Targ gets Aragorn, of course, calls a heroic combat. Spends a point of might this turn, down to 2 might, which is why Wolf felt confident in calling his own heroic combat. Targ gets another free heroic combat from the Master of Battle. And I managed to bring down 4 models this turn. Basically, it's Wolf traps a guy, calls the combat, goes into another guy, traps him, kills him, and Targ does the same thing. So now there are 4 warriors and Aragorn. And we get another priority, and priority once again goes to Ian. But you can see at this point how the battle lines lie. There's those 4 warriors, my mere handful of hill tribesmen at this point, but Aragorn basically cannot move around the board to get to Wolf. Wolf is safe from Aragorn. So we re-engage again. We get another series of heroic combats where Targ and Wolf both call heroic combats, both kill their targets. Aragorn, I think we got another move off. Aragorn spends another point of might this turn, so he's down to 1. Wolf's down to 1. Targ is out of might at this point. But most importantly, we have killed all of Aragorn's friends. He has been just slaying 4 hill tribesmen every single turn. There were a couple of times where he biffed his roll for the combat, and then Banner re-rolled into the 6. I think it happened 3 times. But that's okay. That's okay. Because in the next turn, Ian breaks when there are 2 he's quartered when there are 2 models left on the board. So the game will at this point keep going until he either slaughters me or I kill Aragorn. So we get into the final turn. I did not mark down priority. This was a pretty intense and stressful game. There was a lot of sort of maneuvering on the board. But it doesn't matter at this point. Aragorn I think Aragorn charged into Wolf this time. There was nowhere. I wasn't able to keep him out of me, but it didn't matter. All his friends were dead. And Targ decides to sit it out. Didn't want Targ going into Aragorn. Not quite sure why. Surrounded him with a bunch of hill tribesmen, and we get the strike off. Aragorn's out of might, uses his last point of might to strike. Wolf uses his last point of might to strike, and Aragorn calls for Frodo, so that gives him +1 to his fight value and +1 to wound for the turn. So if he wins this, Wolf is probably screwed. Wolf strikes and rolls a 3, so rolls a 6, strikes up to fight 9. Aragorn rolls a 1 and also is now at fight 9. So we've got a tied fight. Both of us get the 6. And we have a classic Elven Blade roll-off. That's right, it was Ian's priority because he got to roll the dice, because all I could do was put my hands on the table and pray for that 1 or that 2. And wouldn't you know it, the dice today, Sam, were just coming up all Ben, because Ian rolled a 2. The Elven Blade roll-off goes to me, and Wolf on his own put through 4 wounds onto Aragorn. Aragorn only passed 2 of his fate, and Wolf is now 3 for 3 on his heroic challenges. And a minor victory to me. It was 12-10 at the final close of game.
Well, Ben, I think now is the perfect time to say that if you too want to be able to control your dice and your opponents, then look no further. That's right, to our official sponsor, the Baron of Dice, where you can get beautifully hand-swirled resin dice that are guaranteed to roll 6s when you need them and 1s or 2s when your opponents have Elven Blades. At least some of the time. If you want some of those awesome dice he's got dice for all manner of Lord of the Rings armies, you can use the link in the description of wherever you're watching or listening to this episode, and there is also a promo code where you can get a nice little discount on those dice. That promo code is, of course, capital G, capital C, capital A. Definitely consider looking at some of those dice, getting some dice for yourself. Helps us out, helps the Baron of Dice out, and helps you out when you need that clutch 1 or 2 for an Elven Blade.
Well, I know the Baron is working on some Hill Tribes dice or whatever he's calling them for his War for the Soul Ring. And if any army has earned itself some custom dice, Sam, these Besiegers. They had a great game. Looking at this last picture of the game, I've remembered why Targ didn't charge into Aragorn. There was no reason not to. Right, he's 5/5, he's more dice. It's because I needed his standfast to be over by the objective that you can't see in this image, because I had one. Oh, sorry about that. My dog is shaking the platform here. I had one faithful Hill Tribesman on that back objective, and I really didn't. I had not been doing. I used up all my luck for passing courage tests already. A number of them had already run away.
Gotcha. Makes sense. That makes sense. Well, so that's it. You went 3-0 in your very first second edition tournament or event, I suppose. Yeah, good time. Enjoy it. How was it? Any takeaways?
It was so much fun. I really like the new scenarios. The revamped old scenarios. Yeah. I'm sorry, they don't feel like new scenarios. The old scenarios we know and love, revamped, retweaked. I mean, just like in Reconnoiter, right? Just getting victory points for moving heroes off, and your general is dominant 3. I've got a beastly hero, but I was legitimately thinking about just running him right off the table for So like, there's my three models and an extra victory point. So that could have been 13 victory points just in wolf riding off the board if Joey hadn't got anyone off the table, which is it's
Yeah,
interesting to think about.
yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Awesome. I assume that there was no first place, second place, third place kind of situation done at this.
No, no, because of the large number of new players, what we're doing with the slow grow each week, there's a little bit of a buy-in to support the store, and your name gets entered in a raffle, and
Nice.
raffle drawings each month for the store. For I think they were going to do like your next 150 points paid for, but then that gets kind of weird depending on what you're playing. Like if I go, I
Sure.
want to add 150 points of just Hill Tribesmen, they're like, okay, here's 2 boxes of Hill Tribesmen.
Right.
And I'm like, I still need some more, please. Not quite.
Right. Right.
Um, so I think it's like a $100 gift card or something instead.
Not bad.
Not bad. Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
And we were originally thinking about doing first place and stuff, and then I was like, wait, hang on a minute. We've got the guy organizing it, Henry, was playing the ringer and did a great job and made sure to lose all his games to opponents who had been crushed by trees or run over by a Mumakil, so that they got a chance to have some victory, a taste of glory. And we just wanted to share the love, really. I think make sure we keep
Yeah.
growing
Yeah.
our community. Don't want to scare them away just yet.
No, for sure. Wow. Wow. Very cool. Very cool. Awesome. I'm looking forward to my first event in this new world, the New World Order, which I think leads us nicely into really quickly before we end this episode. Where can you be found next? And is there anything you want to talk about before we close up?
Ooh, well, Sam, I will be found next in Connecticut at Mini Earth, which is, of
Mm,
course, 450 points, small games, 3 rounds, and conveniently about halfway between you and I. So we're going to be
yeah.
both going on an epic road trip.
Yeah, that is on the 26th of January, so it will be like, what, 2 days after this episode airs. I
Yep.
think as of now, I haven't checked because we both have our tickets. I think it is sold out, but you can always, if you're in that area, you can always check and see if some.
Although I believe it was sold out, and a bunch of people in the area assumed that it wasn't going to sell out, and then we're like, but we wanted to go. So I think they've actually increased it from like 12 to 16 spots, or possibly even more.
Well, when I got my ticket, I was the 16th person to sign up. So,
Well, maybe they've increased it from 16 to 20 or
wow.
something.
Well,
I do know
sounds
there
like it
was
might be
talk.
might be
Yeah.
worth investigating if you're in that area. Anything else on the horizon for you, Ben?
Well, no, just at the end of February, my next slow grow, and of course, I have battled my way through the poor server connection and gotten myself an Adepticon ticket. So I will be at the grand tournament, and of course, Sam and I will be playing the doubles at Adepticon. So if you're in the area, come and look us up.
Yeah, yeah,
What about you,
definitely.
Sam? Where will we find you in the coming months?
I will obviously also be at the event in Connecticut. I think the next event for myself will be the Flight to the Ford, which is a 600-point tournament on Saturday, February 22nd. That is at, I believe it's now Bazooka Games in Westminster, Maryland, formerly Tables and Towers. So yeah, 600 points. I haven't really actually read the pack, so there may be additional special rules. But I am hoping to attend that. Outside of that, Ben, there are events galore in March. Unfortunately, I'm quite busy in March, and I'm away for basically a week for Adepticon, so I'm not sure if I'll make any of them. But I know there is one the first weekend in March, which I will look up the name of really quick. Do do do. I believe it is hold the line. I believe it's What
Oh,
About Second Edition, which is March 1st and 2nd, run by the guys at Atomic Empire in Durham, North Carolina, run by a fantastic group of individuals. I believe that 200 2 day 500 points, 3 games on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. I think there is a special thing in here, but I can't remember what it is, and I don't see it in the quick scan, so definitely check that out. Then on March 8th, I believe that is when the Sand Hills of Rune something is going on, which I think is that 488
Oh,
point
488.
tournament. And that I believe that's what it is. I have just a Lord of the Rings tournament marked on my calendar for that, and I didn't say the name. And that is also, I think that's Fayetteville, North Carolina. And then finally on the 22nd of March, there is an event that I will look up the name for.
Oh, is that the survivors or something?
Yeah, yes, it's basically practice for Adepticon. So of course I can't find the name of this group. Uh, uh, I don't know. Anyway, Spring for Survivors. That's what it is. 22nd of March. Um, Glen Burnie, Games and Stuff, Maryland. 700 points. This is practice for Adepticon. So 3 games, starting at 10. Run by Tom. Great guy. Probably going to be a fun event. Potentially slightly more competitive if people from the Maryland, DC, Virginia kind of area are getting ready to go to Adepticon. They quite like to go hard. Anyway, and then there's Adepticon. And that is a very unorganized coverage of where I will be and what's coming up. I'm not sure I'm going to go to any of those events in March. It will depend a little bit on on work travel and if I can get away with taking more time off to go play with little toys.
Always a challenge.
Yeah, so I think, Ben, for the next episode, we will continue with solid meat and potatoes of Gondor Calls for Ale and do some classic tournament review or game reviews where both you and I will have attended an event. And
Yeah,
after that, who's to say? Maybe some more talking head kind of videos.
All right, until next time.
Thank you for listening, and, as we said before, do that like and subscribe thing. Thank you for listening to Gondor Calls for Ale. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. We, at Gondor Calls for Ale, are officially sponsored by the Baron of Dice, the producer of premium wargaming dice. These beautifully hand-swirled resin dice have no microbubbles and are therefore perfectly balanced. With over 3,000 variants and unique designs, nearly every tabletop gaming system is represented. So check out the description of this episode for a link and a discount code. Go buy yourself some new dice and let the good times roll. We at Gondor Calls for Ale are not associated with Games Workshop, New Line Cinema, or the Tolkien Estate. We hope we have not misrepresented or offended anyone. These recordings are strictly recollections of games we've played and are not commentaries on the character or competence of our opponents. They are intended purely for entertainment, and we hope they will be taken as such. You can find us on Patreon, see the link in the description. Supporting Gondor Calls for Ale there helps us continue to produce these episodes. You can find us on Instagram at Gondor_calls_for_ale. Feel free to send us a message there. Or on Facebook as Gondor Calls for Ale, another great place to send us a message. Or you can send us an email at gondorcallsforale@gmail.com. As Boromir, Captain of the White Tower, once said, remember today, listener, today this episode was good.